I'm Tisha Bader, and in the news, disturbing, anti-Semitic, and even threatening social media posts and comments from rapper, songwriter, and record producer Kanye West, including him writing, "I'm going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people." The tweets getting him locked out of Twitter and causing outrage and condemnation from across the spectrum, including from the Anti-Defamation League, who said his comments were dangerous. Aryeh Tuchman is Senior Associate Director of the Anti-Defamation League's Center on Extremism, and he joins us now from the ADL headquarters in New York to talk about the tweets and the ADL's response. Aryeh, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So what do you make of the tweets and posts and comments from Kanye West, and what do you think is at the root cause of these remarks?
It's really difficult to speculate about the root cause of why a person would articulate anti-Semitic ideas, espouse anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. Certainly some people have speculated that there is an element of mental illness in Kanye's background, which may be leading him or exacerbating the way he expresses himself on these issues. But I don't think we need to go there. I think we need to look specifically at what he's saying and take him, at his word that he believes that, in terrible stereotypes about Jewish people and money, he has cast doubt on the Jewish heritage of many millions of Jewish people in the world today, and the types of stereotypes that he has been articulating, although they are not directly threatening any one particular individual, at a time of rising numbers of anti-Semitic incidents and anti-Semitic rhetoric around the world. These types of statements and stereotypes absolutely have to be condemned.
I want to just read one of the responses from the ADL. One of the tweets reads, "Power, disloyalty, greed, deicide, blood, denial, anti-Zionism. All of these are anti-Semitic tropes that we break down in our Anti-Semitism Uncovered Guide. Many of these myths have influenced Kanye West's comments recently, and it's dangerous." So is this a situation where you say, okay, this person has been misinformed. This person has been influenced by these things being said, by misinformation, miseducation. Is it more ignorance, do you think, or coming from a place of hatred?
Again, it's really hard to know what's inside a person's heart and to understand and to know their educational background and the experiences that they've had. But this is not the first time that Kanye West has expressed anti-Semitic ideas or anti-Semitic beliefs. For example, we know back in 2013, he famously got into a controversy when he made comments about how Jewish people have unfair advantages over Black people. He was involved in a controversy at the time, and at that moment, he claimed that he had a conversation with the greatest anti-Semite in the country, Louis Farrakhan, who counseled him to be strong and not to apologize. So where did Kanye get these ideas from about Jews and money, about Jews and power, about Jewish heritage, and ideas about, whether Jewish people are actually the true heirs of the biblical Israelites? Where did he get these ideas from, and what is in his heart? I don't know exactly, but I do know that he has a history of these things at this point. And I'm concerned that he is using his celebrity and his influence to spread these ideas further.
And you bring up Farrakhan, and I did want to just mention, so Jonathan Greenblatt, CEO of the ADL, of course, was on this program earlier this year, and he spoke about his book on anti-Semitism, and he spoke about this idea of counsel versus cancel culture, of when are there opportunities to sit down, have a dialogue with somebody, to counsel rather than cancel them. And Nick Cannon, it was 2020, I believe, made the remarks that he did from Louis Farrakhan in support of Farrakhan and some hateful anti-Semitic comments. He was, the Simon Wiesenthal Center reached out to him, the ADL may have as well. And there was it seemed some progress made, some sort of reconciling with what he had said, an apology. Do you think in this case, is there room for such a dialogue? And has the ADL reached out, or do they plan on reaching out? Do you plan on reaching out?
Yeah, I'm not aware of an ADL effort to reach out to Kanye. It may have happened and I'm just not aware of it. Look, I would love it if it would be possible for Kanye to learn more about Jews and about the history and the damage that anti-Semitism has. If there is some way of coming to some reconciliation, to some understanding, I think that would be wonderful.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and I hear what you're saying, and I guess it's important to always be hopeful that there is a path toward that end. But I do want to just mention that the Hollywood Reporter recently shared that Kanye was taped for a show called The Shop, which is produced by the same two gentlemen who produced Recipe for Change. We just aired Recipe for Change, Stand Up to Anti-Semitism, which Jonathan was a part of. It's a fantastic program. Maverick Carter and LeBron James produce it. They also produce a show called The Shop, and they just shared, Maverick Carter shared with the Hollywood Reporter that they taped Kanye for a show just a few days ago, that they had booked it weeks back, and that Maverick Carter said he had a conversation with Kanye before taping, given everything that's happened in the last few weeks, and was reassured and felt confident that Kanye would be able to have a civil conversation that was without hate speech. And Carter said, I'm going to just read this from the article. I believed he was capable of a respectful discussion and he was ready to address all his recent comments. Unfortunately, he used The Shop to reiterate more hate speech and extremely dangerous stereotypes. He said, we've made the decision not to air the episode or any of his remarks. While The Shop embraces thoughtful discourse and differing opinions, we have zero tolerance for hate speech of any kind and will never allow our channels to be used to promote hate. And again, they pulled the episode. It's not going to air. So this was like a week after or days after all of the backlash, and still this is what happened. And, you know, maybe in the future there's hope for some dialogue, but it seems that that might be a bit premature. But how important are voices like Maverick Carter's, like a LeBron James, others who have come out, not just specifically from the Jewish community, but others who say this will not stand, this is not acceptable?
Absolutely. I think it's incumbent on people from all communities to stand up, to be sort of upstanders and people who are able to explain and announce to everyone that they support Jewish people at a moment when Jews feel historically vulnerable, when they have been subjected to the type of anti-Semitic rhetoric coming out of Kanye and others. I think absolutely it's fantastic to see our allies in the African-American community and other communities standing up to reject this type of anti-Semitic rhetoric.
Are you ever concerned that some of these tropes that Kanye seems to be propagating, and these are ancient tropes that have besieged the Jewish people for so long, these tropes of power, of money, of trying to control, and do you ever feel that they sort of get normalized with time passing? And it's always surprising to me that these tropes still come up today. We hear them in so many different situations, and yet they're so old. Have they become mainstreamed at all or normalized in any way? And how do we fight against that?
Yeah, I think that you always have to look at which population are we talking about and which tropes are we talking about. I think that today, for example, in the United States, it is less socially acceptable to be explicitly or overtly anti-Semitic and to articulate the types of anti-Semitic tropes and themes that we saw from Kanye and others. It is less socially acceptable today to do that than it was, let's say, 100 years ago. When Jewish children would get beat up on their way to school and Jews would be called Christ killers in churches and things like that. So I think we are in a better place today especially in the United States, than we have been in other geographic places and in other time periods in history. So I don't want to lose that perspective. But by the same token, there are places within the US, there are populations of people who have ideological commitments to various causes, some of which incorporate anti-Semitism, some of which incorporate anti-Zionism. And in that way, in those communities, these types of anti-Jewish beliefs can fester and spread. And this is an unfortunate example of that, where you have an individual like Kanye West who seems to have picked up some degree of anti-Jewish animus, or at least the acceptance of anti-Jewish beliefs and stereotypes that he is elevating and sharing with millions of followers today.
And that's really, of course, also one of the core issues, and the ADL brings that up. You bring it up in your tweets also, is this huge platform that he has. And perhaps he has been misinformed. Perhaps there are ideas that he is not educated enough about and is ignorant about. And, there's always that fear that all these people, that there's so many people now that those ideas are being exposed to, that perhaps will just latch on to that. And that's a huge number and a serious issue.
Anti-Semitism is a virus. It's a virus of the mind, and it's a virus of the heart. And unfortunately, we have seen that when anti-Semitic ideas and tropes and narratives and stereotypes go unchecked, they do propagate across populations. This is especially true in the age of social media, when a single influencer with the press of a button or on the tap of a phone is able to send their ideas about Jews to millions of people. So again, it just underscores the need for us to denounce these ideas, to educate where possible, but to denounce when necessary, and make sure that these ideas don't get further purchased among other populations.
Absolutely. And again, also just to reiterate that there have been many people who have come out in Hollywood and beyond, Jewish organizations from the Black community, as you mentioned, that have been very, very strong in their stance against what Kanye said, and firm in the absolute unacceptability of this kind of hate speech, whomever it targets. And perhaps there will be a point in time where a dialogue is possible with him. I know that you do incredible work at the ADL and the Center for Extremism as well. And there's always so much to be learned and so much to be shared. So thank you so much for what you do at the Center for Extremism, and for sharing some of those thoughts and analyzing the situation with us here today.
Thanks. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Aryeh Tuchman is Senior Associate Director of the Center for Extremism at the Anti-Defamation League, and we thank him so much for his time today. And thank you, as always, to our Director, Sloan Copeland, Managing Director, Dara Golub, Transmissions Manager, John McDevitt, Technical Manager, Michael Paley, Producer, Carol Lilienthal, and Executive Producer, Mark Golub. And thank you for watching In the News.